So you've got 40 grand burning a hole in your pocket and you want to have some fun with a brand new car. So we've got 6 different ways of putting a smile on your dial, from all-wheel drive, front-wheel drive and rear-wheel drive. So we're going to put all 6 of them through a couple of different tests and see which one does put the biggest smile on your face. Now, the unique thing about the WRX, and one that it's plied its trade on, is its all-wheel drive transmission. And this one's obviously no different. It comes with a few improvements, including torque vectoring across the front axle to help it turn in better. Where the WRX really comes into its own is actually out of a corner, not into it. It does have that traction where it can use all 4 wheels to just rocket between the bends. What's most surprising about this is it actually feels just as much of a front-wheel drive car as the others in the middle of the corner, where when you step on the gas it'll still light up the front inside wheel. Now, Subaru's made big gains in this 4th generation WRX in terms of its steering feel. It's actually got really quite linear steering and nice and natural feeling to it. It's also made big headway in terms of its everyday comfort. The suspension is no longer rock hard and is actually quite compliant over the bumps of everyday use. But on the track it still has plenty of grip, which is good. What does let it down though a bit is the seats. They're a bit flat in terms of its side support, and I'm wondering why they didn't actually use brilliant pews from the BRZ and the Toyota 86. Well, the Commodore SS certainly proves the old adage that there is no replacement for displacement. That 6-litre V8 up front is a great engine, but it all feels a little bit lazy actually. But it's a great car to live with every day. The ride quality in this car is really supple and better than any of the hot hatches, which are a bit stiff and harsh. This thing just cruises along nicely, and really that's what it's best at, cruising, not necessarily that flat out fun. And everything just happens just a little bit slowly in this car. The steering's a bit vague, the brakes are a bit soft, the suspension's got a bit of roll in it, and there's not a lot of tyre grip either. And also the 6-speed auto just takes a little while to react to any inputs, even when you're using it in the manual shift mode. Now, the Volkswagen Golf GTI lays claim to being the original hot hatch, dating back to the early 70s. And this latest 7th generation has improved the breed to be amongst the benchmark of its class. It undoubtedly has the best presentation in terms of cabin quality and features, but it is the most expensive. The Golf GTI really epitomises the German engineering. It's refined in all areas, like the suspension's great, the steering's great, but for me, it just doesn't have that X factor, a little bit of wow factor and excitement that the other cars do, and particularly when you want a hot hatch that gives you a smile on your face. Now, it doesn't feel that much slower than the other cars, but it's just not as playful on the track, and particularly considering that Volkswagen don't let you completely off the leash and the ESC system can't be fully deactivated. The seats are great, but not quite as snug as either the Focus or the Renault. The driving position's good. There's not much to complain about the Golf GTI at all, and you would happily recommend it to anyone asking for a hot hatch. But if they want something with a bit more charm and character, I reckon the others have got it covered. Now, the Renault Megane RS 265 has set the pace for hot hatches for the last couple of years. It is such a great fun car, and particularly on a racetrack. But this one is actually the RS 265 Sport, a limited edition that misses out on a few of the regular car's goodies, including that mechanical limited slip front diff. But drive it at 8/10 and this thing is still a hugely fun car to drive. The engine just comes on with this massive steam of torque that it feels really grunty, and it sounds great too. The steering, probably the best of the bunch in terms of turn-in and response, and there's plenty of grip from the chassis. While it lacks the traction out of the corner, on the way in it still lifts off oversteer and has a little slide at the back end on the way in, which is great fun. While the diff is a noticeable absentee, the RS 265 Sport still picks up these great Recaro bucket seats, which both look racy and feel racy with great side support. It also comes with Brembo brakes, which I reckon are the best of the bunch here. The fact that it only comes in a 3-door body style limits its practicality for everyday use, and also vision across the rear 3/4 is pretty poor. It's also got that typically French quirkiness about it, with some really weird controls for the stereo system. The Focus ST, I reckon, is actually one of those really underrated hot hatches. It doesn't sort of get the kudos that it deserves. Now, the previous generation Focus ST, it had a 2.5 litre 5-cylinder turbo that was so full of character. This one might have dropped a cylinder and is only a 2-litre turbo like the other rivals here, but it's still got that charm to it. Great exhaust note and plenty of torque all the way across the rev range. Quite linear for a turbocharged engine that still feels strong up top. It's got this old school European hot hatch flavour about it that's really sort of prevalent in early French cars like the 205 GTI. And that means that tip into a corner and the back will just have this little gentle lift off oversteer. And that, I reckon, makes it a hell of a lot of fun, particularly in a closed road environment like this. While it feels really well built, it's actually a little bit fussy inside with a lot of buttons. However, one thing the Focus ST scores big points for is these Recaro bucket seats. They are amongst the best in the business. They got support in all the right areas, yet are really comfortable and with a great driving position too. Now, it's no surprise that we love the Toyota 86 and the BRZ. It won our Drive Car of the Year overall in 2012. The thing that we did love about the Toyota 86, and we still do, is that it is a great fun driver's car. But it does actually start to feel a little bit behind the others when you consider what you get for the price. The interior does feel cheap, the engine's a little bit raspy on the exhaust note, and the ride quality is a little harsh. But this thing is all about putting a smile on your dial in a circumstance like this on a closed road or a circuit. And my God, it's so much fun. The steering is just absolutely pin sharp and the chassis is so playful. And while the Toyota 86 is certainly the lightest car here, and you can feel that on the track just how agile it is, the 2-litre naturally aspirated 4-cylinder is the Achilles heel. It doesn't have a hell of a lot of torque, just enough to do a skid on the way out of a corner, but it's got this massive sort of hole at about 3,500 revs, and you've got to really work it hard to get the best out of it. The 6-speed manual also feels precise and mechanical, and the brakes are great and hold up all day in this sort of environment. The seats are also really snug and the driving position is great. But you get what you pay for in this, and that is cheap thrills. So no matter which way you want to spend your 40 grand, each one of these cars will put a smile on your face, but in different ways. For me though, it came down to two. The Focus ST is a really underrated hot hatch that is playful and charming at the same time. But every time I get behind the wheel of a Toyota 86, I have a huge amount of fun. and it really exemplifies that notion of cheap thrills.